Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 6th Annual School of Business Power Breakfast. My name is Gary Giamartino. I'm proud to be Dean of the School of Business and proud to welcome all of you here this morning. It's a great morning. We planned the weather as well as the menu and the good company, so please enjoy it. This event has become a lot like a family reunion. And if we think of our family as School of Business, SIUE School of Business faculty and staff and alumni and board members and advisory board members and students, as with any extended family gathering, there are people here that you recognize, and there may be some people who you're related to who you don't recognize. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment and ask some people to stand, ask some groups of people to stand and be recognized. Can I ask first that all of our outstanding School of Business alumni stand and be recognized? All of our School of Business alumni. Thank you. We have several advisory board members, several of our School of Business advisory board members and members of our alumni board. Members of our alumni board and advisory board, please stand. I'd like to introduce our three of our vice chancellors are here today. I see Patrick Hundley, Vice Chancellor for University Relations. On my right, on your left, is Paul Ferguson, Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Provost. And they've managed to cover the room from left to right. Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Nobi Emanuel. Thank you for being here today. Now, I'd like to ask a very special group of people to stand. These are the people who we often refer to as the heart and soul on a good day. The heart and soul of the university, our faculty. Will all our faculty for the School of Business please stand? Thank you all. And finally, let me ask our students to stand. We have students here. Let me ask all of our students to stand. No, wait, before you sit. I have an assignment. This is a university. You all are here by special invitation of your faculty. This is an invitation-only event. This is an event in which our faculty have an opportunity to tap on the shoulder students who they think have some promise as leaders, as future business professionals. So we hope that you feel appropriately recognized because we have identified you, our faculty have identified you as some of the best and brightest students in the School of Business. So I congratulate you for being selected to be here this morning. I would also encourage you to take full advantage of this experience. As a wise educator, Yogi Berra, once said, to observe a lot of things by looking around. Okay, you need to observe a lot of things by looking around today. Take advantage of who's here. Take advantage of the networking opportunity that you have with your faculty. Take advantage of the networking opportunity that you have with our alumni here this morning, and learn everything you can. We have great confidence in you now. And we hope we have great confidence in your future, and we know that one of you is going to be up here delivering this address one day. So welcome, and please have a seat. The job of selecting a power breakfast speaker is it's easy and it's very difficult at the same time. It's easy because we have so many accomplished and outstanding alumni. It's difficult because there can only be one person at a time selected to speak. Past speakers in our Power Breakfast series have included Dion Joannou, who is the former CEO of Nortel North America and the Neptune Society, Fernando Aguirre, President and CEO of Chiquita Brands, Steve McCann, who is the former Chief Financial Officer of Long's Drugs, Tim Keenan, the CEO of High Performance Technologies Incorporated in Washington, and last year Karen Molnar, who is a retired audit partner from KPMG and the first human to ever sign an internal audit of the U.S. Treasury Department. By the way, just as a sidelight, about one of our another note about one of our other power speakers, one of our previous speakers, Fernando Aguirre will be the undercover CEO on CBS Television's program of the same name. We're not sure exactly when he's going to be on, but he will be. He and his company will be featured on Undercover CEO on CBS probably within the next 3 weeks. What's the term? Check your local listings for the exact time and date. But do watch for Fernando. That'll be fun. We've had some contact with him in the last few weeks, and he's excited about it. He learned a great deal from the experience, and is excited about the program. This year's speaker is Jan-Patrick Schmitz, a 1994 graduate of our MBA program and the President and Chief Executive Officer of Montblanc, North America. We chose Patrick for a number of reasons. We first came to know him, or actually came to know him again, since we knew him as an alumnus. We came to know him again when he emailed us in response to our B-World invitation for alumni to update us on their accomplishments and their profiles. We knew that when he came to SIUE following his undergraduate education in Germany, that he was an exceptional student, and he proved here to be an exceptional student as well. We learned of his international experience with Montblanc, of his leadership of the company's largest market, and of the ways in which he was celebrating the Montblanc brand through association with celebrities and VIPs, especially in the New York City area. We also learned of his strong commitment to charities in the arts and education, particularly to those charities that benefit young people in the arts. So when I planned a trip to New Jersey and New York last year to visit SIUE alumni, I requested a meeting with Patrick. He responded immediately and graciously and offered to meet at his office in Murray Hill, New Jersey, just outside of New York City. The leader, the SIUE alumnus that I met, was even more charming and articulate than I expected him to be. With a deep command of knowledge of the industry that he participates in and his company, Patrick quickly educated me and sold me on why Montblanc was one of the premier luxury brands in the world. He also recalled with great fondness and with great precision, remarkably great precision that I also did not expect, many of his educational experiences at SIUE. And I know that this morning, sitting at the table with alumni Walt Knepper and Mitch Myers, he's shared some of his experiences about being a student here at SIUE. And some of those experiences that he related to me included, how many of you are, I know we have graduate assistants here today. How many of you are graduate assistants? Good. Patrick remembered being a graduate assistant. And some of those experiences, and I mention that because I want to offer you all hope that there is life after being a graduate assistant. Even more during that meeting, and without trying, he sold me on his leadership, his intellect, and his passion for business. I knew then that Patrick must meet our students, faculty, and staff, and his fellow SIUE alumni as a speaker in our Power Breakfast series. Patrick is going to speak for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and discussion. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the microphone Jan-Patrick Schmitz. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just pick up on that graduate assistant thing before I open my speech. We all look into the future, always planning ahead of where could things lead us. And you said about, there is hope when you're a grad assistant. Well, you have to live in the moment. I remember the most important thing, the absolute number one most important thing about being a graduate assistant is getting that parking sticker, which puts you right behind that building, because that long walk over on the other side, close to Chicago, which is in particular during wintertime a really painful exercise. So enjoy that sticker. Yes, I'm very, very glad. I'm honored to be here and see so many, because the last time I was here, that's 16 years ago. We just said that earlier this morning. And that was when I was sitting at the table in the chairs, learning and studying, listening to faculty. So I'm particularly honored to see so many faculty now sitting, and I'm standing, and I'm speaking and talking. It has been 16 very fast years, I must say, when I've left SIUE. Maybe I want to start a little bit about myself prior to that, and I will be very brief. Yes, I was born and raised in Germany. I went there to a business school, the International Business School, IBS, which had at the time a partnership program with SIUE, which, if you're an international student, is an extremely helpful thing because of the program and the credits which you gained in the country, in your home country. It's sometimes very difficult to be recognized unless you have a partner school who went through the exercise of reviewing the curriculum. So I came here in 1993, I believe, because I made, or two actually, late 1992, because I did my MBA about in a year and a half, which I can tell you I regret. I should have spent a little bit more time going through the program and also enjoying being a student, because since then life was very, very fast. I arrived here literally with 2 suitcases. There were a professor here, which I never forget, a man which I owe a lot, Professor Hans Steffens is his name. He was very, very engaged. He was a German national who came here, and he really wanted to bring people together. He wanted to bring Germany closer to his community and his community closer to Germany. So I arrived one day on January 3rd, I believe, with literally 2 suitcases, arriving at St. Louis Airport. And I regret to say that airport didn't change since then either when I arrived yesterday. And he opened his house for not only me, actually for a group of Germans. He brought over a group of Germans. And he really helped us to settle down in a very short period of time, and he opened the doors. And I must say, I will never forget that, a lot of people in the community opened their doors and helped us to really settle in. So I became a student here, lived off campus, went through this year-and-a-half program. There's another professor which I really remember well, because I was I had a finance background. I was a grad assistant for Professor Nayurgis, mergers and acquisitions. In particular, worked a lot on the Eastern European opening. Europe just opened, which was an exciting time, and we worked with companies like Philip Morris, who looked at places like Hungary to go in and build up their plans and build up the business. So I worked for him, and then I met a professor. And I thought he was strange, I gotta admit that. I thought he was strange at the beginning, but he had a profound impact on me. Professor Richard McKinney, I don't know whether you know him or remember him, some of you hopefully. He was a professor in organizational behavior. Now, I was at finance major, and I was all about numbers, and I was all about percentages and mergers and acquisitions, and there was Richard talking about behavior and psychology and people. And he invited me to one of his classes, and I felt as a student, I can't really say no, I'm sorry, I'm really busy. So I went, and at the end of the class, he came over to me and he said, "Hey, how was it? Wasn't it great? I really liked your input. I would like you to join my class." And I was thinking, oh my God, another one of these. And I said, sure, why not? It was great. And I can tell you it was great. And I only realized a long, long time later, actually a short time at the end of the day, I realized that it was great because, and that's for all the students in the room, whatever you learn in terms of skills, of techniques, of tools, of knowledge, that's all important, but there's only one set in your toolbox. At the end of the day, whatever you do, you deal with people. Whether you sell to people. Whether you're a buyer, you buy from people. Whether you lead, you deal with people. Unless you know how to understand and work with people, you can have the greatest skills in the world, you will fail. And I, by the way, have learned that when I moved on to Japan, where I lived for 6 years and started off. But before I get there, let me finish my story here at SIUE. So I graduated, I was actually elected, I was proud of it, even though at the time I didn't fully understand being of European descent and not understanding all the students' organizations. I was inducted to Beta Gamma Sigma, and I thought, wow, that adds a few more ribbons on my thing there. That, you know, a little bit of color to the black. So I found that was cool. But I realized later on that actually it was an honor to be part of that group, and I'm very grateful for that. And I will never forget, out at the big red hall, I forgot what it was, where was the graduation, where we showed our black robe and the colorful little ribbons. My parents came over, of course, who were so proud, as you could imagine. And at the time, and there was no linkage to today, when I was standing outside of that big red hall on the left-hand side, right at that red wall, there actually is a garbage can. That's how good I remember that. My father gave me his Montblanc fountain pen. At that time, I knew nothing about I would ever be working for that company, let alone lead it. It was his pen, which he had on his desk for 30 years. He used it every day. It was his piece, and he handed it over to me. And I think all of you have a relationship, as many of you, I hope, have a similar experience where your parents might have given you for graduation a pen, or it might even be a Montblanc pen, who knows. The value of that, this personal value, this personal torch which is handed down to the next generation, is something which moved me back then, still today. Yet at the time, I had no plans. I had no knowledge that I would ever be standing here as the president and CEO of Montblanc, because I actually wanted to be a teacher. I actually had a good time at SIUE. My wife at the time was an investment banker, and I had a great plan. I do the research, I do the teaching, I do all the academia, I do all the thinking, and she makes the money. So that was a plan. I admit that. It was a plan. I was open. I said, look, isn't that wonderful? And as an investment banker, that should really cover for the two of us. So the plan was to go to Toronto, because she was working for Deutsche Bank, and she was heading their fixed income desk up there. And so I applied for the PhD program at the University of Toronto. And then what I didn't have in my plans is that companies and banks move people around rather quickly, in particular if they're good. So before I could even pack my two suitcases, which I still had, to move on, she was moved back to Frankfurt. At the time, we were not yet married. So I had to make a choice, and life is all about choice. So do I want to be now, my PhD student sitting somewhere in a dorm, with my investment banking spouse, now wife, sitting somewhere else in the world? And I didn't find that too appealing. And the second thing was that my parents really didn't find it was a good idea for me being in the US, or in Canada, not because being here, but being so far away from home. So my dad sent me a little advertisement for Montblanc saying they're looking for a financial controller. So he said, we educated, we brought you up and all of that, we never asked you for anything. And his note said, we only asked you for one thing. If you ever are in Europe, if you ever make it across the pond, you owe me to give these people a call. That's all. That's all he wanted from me. And I said, yes, that's sure. I mean, if they need people, if I call them occasionally at some stage, I mean, that job's gone. I mean, I'm safe. I have not a problem, right? So I did that after quite some time, and I was pretty certain that I would fulfill my duty. And they answered, well, whenever you're around, just please visit us. And this is not what I was looking for. So I came over, I don't know, a month or two later. And fast forward, within days, they asked me to join the company, which I did as a controller for group companies. With all my American background, I was sure that I would take over the American desk. And the first day they said, congratulations, you will be the controller of Japan. And I looked and said, wow. So a year later, I had my first business trip to Japan, and I hated it. God, I hated it. And that's important. I talked earlier about being able to deal with people. I spent about 5 days. The issue we had at that time was we had a joint venture, big joint venture partner, and we didn't get the financial reports we needed. So I was flying over to convince them that getting a cash flow statement and a profit and loss account from time to time is something which is not too much of a burden if you are the majority shareholder of that joint venture. So I spent 5-6 days in a room which was about 8 by 8 feet, with about 4 Japanese smoking cigarettes non-stop. Non-stop. It was hot, it was June, it was rainy season. At night I ate food which I don't want to describe to any of you. And at the end of these 5 days of complete exhaustion, they said, we will agree to send you the reports. If you agree that the reports don't read Montblanc Japan, but Montblanc Division DGJ Japan, because in their mind we were a division. Now here are 2 immediate reactions as a human being. First of all, what are my objectives? I want my report and I want to get the hell out of here, right? So my initial reaction would have been, sure, I can write on that report whatever as long as the data is good. So we recessed and I thought about people. And I thought about what does it mean? What are they telling me? And what they told me is that we didn't have their respect. And if we don't have their respect, they can send us whatever they want. They will not develop the business. So I entered back into the room. There they were. And they were certain, you know, there was that Western kid, you know, we tortured him for 5 days. Sure, he would say yes. And I looked at Sin, and I said, "Simasen," and I bowed, and I said, "I'm afraid I can't do that." The room went silent. They looked at me. They couldn't believe it. I said, "I can't do that." And I left the room, went on a plane, flew back. Now, 2 things happened. First of all, the CFO was fired. That was something which he didn't expect, because in Japan there is full-time employment, and when I did that, that was something which sent little signal, I guess, to the organization. But number 2, I got 6 months later this wonderful offer to move to Japan. Now, that's what I didn't plan for, right? So life is always a balance. Now, when I left that day in Narita Airport on that first trip, I called up my wife. At the time, and we both, you know, very international. She was educated in the States as well. She's also German, went around the world together and lived in so many places. And I said, "Look, honey, one place, just scrap it off the map, Japan. That's the place where I ain't go." So 6, 8 months later, congratulations. How about the commercial director for Asia Pacific in Tokyo, 6 weeks, pack up your bag, let's go. So, so here we went, and this time was the first year, and that brings me back to Richard McKinney, the first year, both of these skill sets were really there. One is I needed to make sense of the business, I needed to analyze it and see how we can build it, but then I had to deal with people. I can't tell you how often I was sitting there and, you know, saying like, "God, why me? I mean, what did I do to you that you do that to me? Why am I here?" Because we had about, at the time, 120 people, none of them speaking a word of English, none of them. They looked up in a dictionary what a controller does. Controller controls. Control is not a good thing, so he's basically a spy, right? So when I came in, it was a big office. There were, I mean, as it were a joint venture, there were about 250 people in one big room, and I swear to God, everybody was smoking, starting at 8 in the morning and finishing at 10 at night. There was more smoke in the room. You couldn't see the end of the room, and I am not exaggerating. And they put walls around my desk. So I was in the middle of that room, and they put dividers right around me, because they decided we just ignore him. You know, he was sent over, he's a controller, we ignore him. And you see, when you're in that situation, your skills which you learn about, you know, the numbers and the knowledge and the history, all of that becomes almost secondary, because you know you have to win over hearts, you have to create respect. And I had a lot of disadvantages, because I was young, I was foreign, right? Didn't speak the language. I was higher ranked. I was, within a year and a half, the president and CEO. I was the highest ranked officer in the company. So I had to create respect. And if you look at the Japanese culture, respect comes with seniority. I mean, the only thing which I had, and for the ladies I apologize, the Japanese culture is not me. The only thing which I had going for me is that I was a man. I mean, that was a plus on the balance sheet, but the rest was all working against me. Now, after 6 years, which I spent, by the way, after 1 year, I thank the Lord for being in Japan, because it was the biggest and best experience. And to all the students, I can tell you, that was back in 1996. Today, the world is so small, you know. And that is one thing which we have to learn as a country. As a country, we are still the biggest and most powerful economy in the world. There surely, I can tell you, our own business, the growth of China is phenomenal, but there's nothing wrong about others growing. But our role has changed, and the way we looked at the world in the past doesn't work anymore, because the balances are shifting. And also, as a nation, as a company, as a country, as a community, we have to open up and being international and being open-minded and accepting disruption in your own life and accepting discomfort in your own life to make that experience of learning other cultures. And I had that disruption, which was much easier when I came to SIUE. I had nobody here. I had Hans Steffen and 2 suitcases. I mean, that's it. And that's a major disruption. When I went to Japan, I had 5 suitcases and no Hans Steffen, by the way. And that is something which I can only recommend to every and all of you, is the world's getting very small. And there's no question of whether, you know, and it's of no importance whether you're German or whether you're American or whether you're Chinese or whether you're Japanese. If you operate today as a community, as a country, or as a company, you have to be international. So when I left, but I left Japan forcefully and knowingly. I really needed to get out. And I think I might run slightly out of time, so I have to speed it up a little bit. Because if I would have stayed, I would have become Japanese. There's nothing wrong about that. But you really needed to move on, and you needed to broaden your experience. So I've left after 6 wonderful years. Our girls were born in Japan. And as a sign of how much my wife and I, who by the way, as an investment banker, she was a vice president of Deutsche Bank, couldn't get a job, not even with Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank said, look, I mean, you know, you're extremely skilled. But, you know, what was my plus was her minus. You're a woman. So she couldn't get a job because there would have been revolution. She was so upset that she learned in 4.5 years Japanese fluently. Reading, writing, the whole 9 yards. And there are 4 levels of Japanese tests, and level 1, the EQ, is the one where you actually can go to university and study. She masters EQ. And she actually translated for me, which was a whole different interesting story, and now I start really, you know, talking a little bit too much here. I actually had her translating for me, which was an interesting experience, because all the business partner men look at me and saying, like, you know, why is she talking so much and why are you talking so little? And I had to explain to them that I can't speak the language as well, and that was something which they couldn't comprehend. But in any event, we left the country, and in 2003, we came to the States, came back. It really was a homecoming because, as I said, I was educated here. I felt home in the States, and so did my wife, who actually went to high school up in Boston, Massachusetts. Our son was born here. We became residents some 4 years ago, and we called that home. And the business of it has grown for the last, 104 years, obviously. We're the world market leader in fine writing instruments, with about 70% of the world market, which is a terrible position to be in. It is an absolutely terrible position to be in. I can give to all of you students, don't be a market leader. Now you look at me like, why the hell is he saying that? This is like the kid who has that huge sandbox, all these tools and toys and all of that, but no other kids to play with you. Seriously, it's big, because competition, that's business 101. Competition is the most important thing for an industry or for a company or for a market to grow. If you're the market maker because everybody else is in a single digit and you have 70+%, it's a bad spot to be in. But we're in that, and that's, by the way, why we also grew in so many other categories in order to grow, because if you are the market, then the market doesn't grow, because you just don't have other players to drive it forward. The last 2 years have been, or 3 years, I officially called now disruption. So anybody who uses the word recession, and later on I will be in a few marketing classes, forget that. We ain't talking about recession, because first of all, and I learned that not only here, but also here, is all fixed costs are variable in the long run, right? And so all recessions in the long run are merely disruptions. That's number one. Number two, it has been shown in our recent half-year results, which we released with 52% top-line growth over the last year for the first 6 months. Of course, the second 6 months will probably be slowed down, but there is no doubt about we will complain on a reasonably high level by the end of this year. So I'm really glad, I'm proud and honored to be here. I could share that with you. I wanted to tell you as well that learning never stops. Learning never stops. And I saw that this morning when I came in the room, and I saw that little sheet of paper, which on your table is my picture. Now, one of my hobbies is photography. So I'm actually I'm a militant photographer in a positive sense. And I took that picture myself, and I saw it and said, oh my God. I mean, there are two things happening. Either I had a really rough day, that's number one. Number two, my skill level at that time was really low, or a combination of the two. So that will have to be updated. I actually just launched, being now in the social media world, I just launched my own internet site where I showed my own, just demonstrate my own pictures and my own artwork. So that's maybe my last word before I open it up for questions and answers. I said earlier I regretted that I only been here for a year and a half and literally rushed through my studies. Life is full of balance. I became the CEO of Montblanc Japan at age 29. That was too early. Not too early from a company or from a success or career point of view, but I can tell you, and actually Gary can testify to it, we had a few phone calls on the way leading up to this meeting, and to get in touch with me. I have a wonderful assistant who slots my time. I mean, right now, if you want any time with me, that's probably looking at February or March. And I'm literally not kidding you. So that's the downside. So everything in life is about balance. It's about the balance between success, studies, life. And that's what I said. Photography is one of my hobbies, and it's a good one, by the way. If you do inspire a successful and active career, because you can take your camera anywhere, and you end up traveling a lot. So here your portfolio will grow fast. With that note, I thank Gary for inviting me. I'm honored to be here, and I open it now up for any questions or comments which you might have. Yes, please.
Excuse me, can we ask people to please introduce yourselves before you ask a question? Thank you.
I think I remember you, actually. I actually remember you. Yes, ma'am.
Being the 70% market leader in reputation for quality, what is your, and my husband only has your pen.
Thank you.
What is your strategy going forward? Is it to get it all, or is it to go
No.
down the food chain a little bit with a quality reputation, but maybe less expensive? I don't know. What is it?
Very good question. So first of all, when you have 70%, it's not only dangerous from the outside view of the market not growing, but also from an inside view. Because your people, when you have 70%, they're trailing off a little bit because look, we have 70%. So internally, you don't want to lose the 70%. That's for sure, because that's one heck of a revenue stream. I can tell you that. And if you're doing many of our products, not many, some of our products, the oldest one were launched in 1924. Still sold successfully. Now you think about German engineering, and then you can think about how effective and how the gross margin of these products are as we practice to build them since 1924. So we'll maintain that. There's absolutely no reason in growing that, because the cost of growing that, adding 1 or 2 percentage shares, stands in no relation to the gains. Now, of course, there are a couple of options. One is going downstream and utilizing the skills you have, and then trying to be, which I like to call, more democratic in your price point. Bad strategy, because you can't be everything for everybody. Now, if you are premium and you would go in a more moderate section, you lose premium instantly. But what we have done is, and that actually is, if any of you are in the marketing classes with Professor Gorman in a minute or two, I actually have a whole presentation on that. And I will share that with you. But the bottom line is, we looked at our brand, and if you look at luxury, it's actually not about products. Actually, your husband is not only buying the Montblanc pens because he loves the pens, but he also loves the message behind it. He loves the message of education, intelligence, power, success, achievement. All of that gets along. Now, we've taken that and we've actually loaded the white star, the symbol of the brand, with all of these emotional values. And then we took that and we actually grown our product portfolio. And the biggest step we have done going into fine timepieces, we actually today make our own movements We make our own watches. We operate in the segment of up to $350,000 for one watch. And this is made truly in the fashion way how watches were made back in the days in 1858, when actually the manufacture which we bought was made, and actually making one watch takes about a year. Now, so we've took it actually upstream, and we've loaded it, as I said, with value, with brand equity. And today, if you look at Montblanc, less than 50% of what we sell is actually writing instruments, despite that being 70% of the world market. It's about watches, and watches are very similar in its DNA because they're analogs, they're handcrafted, they're bought or received at a significant moment. Might it be a holiday, might it be a promotion, might it be any other event in your life, often handed down to the next generation. So there's similarities in the emotional values of that product. And then we've launched as well into leather goods, men's accessories like cufflinks, briefcases, and in many of these categories, like men's accessories, we're a world leader as well now. In leather, we're one of the strongest brands on the men's side. We're absolutely nowhere on the ladies' side. In terms of handbags and others, there are players like Louis Vuitton, Prada, much more successful and much more dominant. And we actually launched jewelry. Ladies and men's jewelry, but also ladies' diamond jewelry. So we're taking it upstream. We've changed, and then, just to wrap it up, we changed distribution. We went from thousands and thousands of point of sale to 360 owned stores around the world. So we changed the experience. So when today, I always like to say that's a big thing, by the way, for all the students to write that down. It never is about the one transaction which you can do today. It's about the next 20 transactions you will make with somebody down the road. So everything is about building a relationship with the customer, not selling him or her one piece. Any other question? Yes.
Completely out of distribution?
No, we still have very limited. If I take, for instance, North, as an example, the U.S., if you would go back, probably about 7, 8 years, we had, I would venture to say, 3,500, 4,000 point of sales, non-boutiques. Today we have about 700, and in 2-3 years it will be half of that.
And you were able to manage pulling out of that distribution channel.
Less is more.
You were able to manage.
Less is more. So you go from convenience retailing to target shopping, and what will be interesting, by the way, is how the whole e-commerce world, the online world, what that will bring. Because one thing, I mean, let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, retail is therapy. Retail is therapy. I mean, going into a store and buying something beautiful and nice, might it be shoes, bags, watches, jewelry, that's therapy. Now, that therapy on the internet works very, very different because their goods still are a commodity. And when goods are a commodity, they lose their emotional values. And if you look at premium, it's all about emotion. And the products, yes, they're wonderfully crafted, they're great, and they last forever, and they're beautiful. But the emotion which comes with it is what you actually makes to spend. I mean, I don't want to ask that question because women always get a little bit irritated when I ask, who has more than 5 handbags, 6 handbags, 10 handbags, and normally I'm getting up pretty high with that. These are all emotional purchases because none of that needs that many pens, watches, shoes. Nobody needs it. Any other question? Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about about how Montblanc sees the geographic markets around the world?
See, it's similar to being such a market leader. I mean, there's a massive shift. Actually, you mentioned, and I'm grateful for it, but you didn't say the truth, Gary, that America is the biggest market. America is not the biggest market anymore. Actually, China last year became our biggest market in the world after 104 years. Well, I have to take that back. At the beginning, Germany was bigger, and then we exported. But basically, since we were international, America always was the number one. China is the number one. Now, we thought China would be the number one. If you go back 2 years ago, we thought it would be by 2013, 14, maybe with a bit of luck. Of course, the disruption helped their rise. I mean, we should not forget that. And if you look at our current growth numbers, you know, this battle is still not, you know, not yet over. Yet I think sustainably there's a major shift. Now, with that, actually, for us, but for the world economy, or for companies in the world economy, is a major risk. Because if money is that almost easily made, if consumption is at such a high, unhealthy level, this is the same, in principle, which brought us into the disruption in the first place. It's just on a different level when an economy grows at that pace, not because the Chinese will fail, but because of that growth level will be impossible to sustain. Because, as I always like to say to my people when we start a new project, and they told me proudly, wow, we will grow 50% next year. And I say 50% on nothing is still nothing. But when you have a certain size, you know, the relative growth gets smaller and smaller. So a lot of companies shift overly because of that money, resources away. And I think if you look at America, we lost so much manufacturing because it was so much easier and cheaper to produce over there. We see the crippling effects today. We see the quality. I think China will become, already today is not an emerging market anymore. We look at places like India, which is a strong growth company. Russia still, you know, and I don't mean that disrespectful. I mean that I mean it's just a fact. If the Russians wouldn't have the Russians, that country would have been much more advanced as they are. And they are paddling a little bit backwards right now because the growth patterns we saw there were also mind-boggling. And that's, of course, an economy which you have to carefully watch right now and have to make a very intelligent decision analysis of whether to what extent you want to expose yourself there. Yes, there are major shifts, but we should not be overly happy about all the growth figures. So personally, I'm concerned in everything in life. We learned that in finance as well. It's all about diversification and risk management. If you have your eggs, too many of your eggs in one or a few baskets, that's always bad. And if you look at our group, actually, if I think back at the 1997 currency crisis in Asia, I think about the SARS crisis, I think about the 2001 recession. We had always been give and take balance sort of equally between the three major markets, Asia, Europe, and America. And history has just shown that one struggling, forget now the world disruption, because thank God that was back in the 1930s, and now we have one 2010, so statistically speaking in 2110 we should have the next one. We don't have to worry about that. So that aside, when you struggle in one area, you normally do good or better in the others, and you're able to compensate. So I'm very worried about that. Yet the opportunities are phenomenal. I mean, the growth numbers, just mind-boggling. Just mind-boggling. Any other question? I think we are, yeah?
I do have another.
Sure.
Maybe a different direction. You personally and Montblanc have been very active as supporters of the arts.
Yes.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how Montblanc, with the corporate stance is on making contributions to a community or back to society. And then I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your personal involvement, why you do it,
sure.
what you learn from it, how it helps you become a better leader.
I think it's very common knowledge that when you are successful and doing well, that giving back and sharing is one of the reasons why you should be successful. So, corporately, as a company, as well as me personally, we have focused on education, arts education in particular, and really focusing on underserved schools and children who are not in a position to actually enjoy, in particular, arts education. Now, with that, actually, on a corporate and global level, we have been involved significantly for now 4 campaigns with UNICEF, because we believe if you think about poverty and if you think about future generations, the only way for children in underserved or devastated communities around the world to break that cycle of poverty, The only way of doing that is to help them to get themselves out of poverty, and therefore education is the only way. Sending food packages is a first relief in a moment of greatest crisis, but this is not the answer to it. So we have actually, on a global level, had various campaigns to raise funds for education for children in underdeveloped countries and countries in great need. On a domestic level, and there I'm personally involved as well, I'm looking again, because I enjoyed a wonderful education. So I'm focusing on students and children who do not have that opportunity, because at the end of the day, it all starts in what family you're born into, and that determines 85% at least of how far you can get educationally. And then if you're lucky in terms of either governmental support or support by organization, that might be the other 15. So I work personally with the Urban Arts Project in New York, which is bringing arts education to the public schools in the city of New York, because arts education is the first thing which goes away. Now, if you think about inner city kids, gangs, crime, and all of that good stuff which is happening out there, these are kids like our kids trying to find their way in life and trying to create their personality. And arts education and arts, might it be digital, might it be classical arts, performing arts, is a way of expressing and finding your own way. So I'm actually running a Broadway show, the 24-hour play, where I get 24 actors, 6 writers, 6 producers together to write a theater play. 6 theater plays which are conceived, trained, and played within 24 hours on Broadway. And all the funds, and we are a major underwriter, and all the funds and more money goes to urban arts and the children. I've put in place master classes. I'm actually later this month I'm teaching 2 classes together with authors, writers. Louis Lapham, who was the editor of who's actually now the editor and publisher of Lapham Quarterly, together with other writers, will speak about literature. And we have a class of 12 students from inner city schools, where we actually use Mark Twain and the work of Mark Twain and how that influenced the time and what we can learn today and that. And then I do the John Lennon bus. There's actually a bus which we sponsor, which is going coast to coast around the country, stopping at schools all over North America, and it actually is a music production, video production bus. And kids actually can go in there and express themselves and record their own music and record their own videos. In state of the art, this is like a $2 million bus, state of the art production stage. And I'm going down to Houston whenever, ask Rosaria, later this month, I think. Where I'm being with a bus and with inner city kids in Houston, Texas, for 3 days actually, to allow them to express themselves. So arts education, I believe, not only because Montblanc is an arts brand or artsy brand, I believe that's one thing which makes a very low in public school records, yet is one of the most profound areas which build personality and which helps building character. So that's some of the areas which I'm involved in. Any other questions? Then I think, there's another one. Yes, sure.
Soviet Tourist International Food Center.
Right.
I enjoyed very much in your presentation and sympathize with some of your experiences abroad. What would be your advice to a student who is about to graduate, very close to graduation, and based on what you said, your comments about the world becoming so small and globalized, but this student is still limited in that particular area, and is like graduate but still willing to get started.
Right.
What would be your advice?
No, first, I mean, in that case, if you're close to graduation, the student probably have missed that one. I mean, it really starts with language to begin with. To give you an idea, my kids, twin girls, 8 years, and a 6-year-old boy, they learn 4 languages. They learn Mandarin, Spanish, English, and German. And they're pretty much, they're fluent in English and German, and they are very good in Mandarin and Spanish. So it starts with that. And the world, the belief that the world speaks English, it's a fact, the world speaks English. But when you do business and when you build relationships, language is culture, and culture is people, and people connect. The second thing I've learned, from the dean when we met back in New Jersey, that actually SIUE is also getting much more engaged and involved in international relationship with university, and that's what brought me here. I mean, because it is difficult. It is very difficult. It's not only difficult from a university standpoint and the curriculum and your credits, but it's also from a legal point of view to get, the student visa, to get into the country, to get help to find a place to live, etc. So existing relationships is obviously a very helpful thing. During my undergraduate time, I went to an international business school in Germany, which actually was trilingual. And as part of, that was one brutal program. You got 6 weeks of vacation breaks during the year, and you had to take internships. So the bottom line was, for 3 years, you just don't take any time off. And doing that, you had to do it abroad. And through own connections, through university connections, I did internships. And that's often a very good way to also test the water a little bit to get it. So my first internship, my first time I went to the United States, I did an internship at the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. And I learned everything about plastic molding. I'll never forget that. So, but that opened up, and yes, of course I knew America. I mean, it's not like, we had television, but I didn't know what it meant to be there. I didn't know whether I like it. And that Fitchburg, Massachusetts experience, which was an 7 or 8 week internship, settled sort of my heart on the States, where I can proudly say today that I am a resident, and I call that home, and I call it home for my family. Thank you very much.
Patrick, thank you very much for a very engaging talk this morning. Thanks for sharing your life experience, your educational experience, your professional experience with us. I was looking around the room as you were talking, and every eye in the room was focused on you, listening to your story. No emails. No, that's right. So thank you so much for being here this morning. So it's with great pride. It's a great honor to have you here. We have a little gift to express our appreciation. It is obviously not a pen. It's something we hope that you will.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
Thanks, Bill.
Perfect.
Something we hope that you will enjoy as a memory of your visit to SIUE in 2010, and we will not wait 16 years to get you back again.
Gary, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.